When we first met, everything felt perfect. We were both ambitious, living in the city, building our lives together, but then my wife started talking about her family constantly. I could tell it was important to her, but I didn't realize how much it would change everything. It started off small. She casually mentioned that it would be nice to live closer to her parents, just so they could see us more often. At first, I brushed it off. But then, every conversation seemed to circle back to the same thing. "We should really move," she'd say, her voice tinged with hope. "My mom misses us." I didn't understand why it was so urgent. Her parents were fine, living just a couple of hours away. But to her, it felt like a matter of family loyalty. She'd say things like, "It's just one of those things, you know. Families should stick together." I grew frustrated. I had a good life where we were near my job, my friends, our whole routine. I didn't want to disrupt that. But as the months passed, her subtle suggestions turned into direct requests. She made it clear she wanted to move closer to her family, and I started to feel like I was being cornered into agreeing. But still, I held my ground. I didn't want to give up our independence. It wasn't about not caring for her family, but I felt that our own space and peace were important too. I kept saying, "Let's take our time with this. We don't need to rush." That's when things started to shift. She became distant, almost cold. She'd bring it up in arguments, use it as leverage whenever we disagreed. "Why don't you care about my family?" she'd ask, as if I was doing something wrong by wanting to stay put. I could feel the tension building, and that's when I began to question, was I being selfish? Should I really care more about her family's proximity than our own stability? After weeks of back and forth, I caved. I started looking at houses near her parents. The moment I agreed, a weight lifted off her shoulders. But little did I know, that was only the beginning. Once we moved into the new place, I thought things would calm down. I figured it was just a matter of settling in and adjusting to the new routine, but I couldn't have been more wrong. What came next caught me completely off guard. At first, everything seemed fine. We were closer to her parents, and I could tell my wife was happy. She'd spend more time with them, and I didn't mind that. A new family meant a lot to her. But then, one evening, she came to me with an unexpected request that would shake the foundation of our marriage. "You know," she said, as we were having dinner one night, "my parents are struggling a bit financially. They've fallen behind on their mortgage payments." I paused, not sure where she was going with this. "I'm sorry to hear that. Are they okay?" "They will be," she replied quickly. Almost too quickly. But I was thinking maybe we could help them out. "I know it's a lot, but what if we paid off their mortgage? It would give them peace of mind." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I tried to remain calm. "What do you mean, we?" I asked, unsure if I heard her correctly. "You want me to pay their mortgage?" "Yes," she said, her voice unwavering. "It would mean a lot to them, and it would show that we care. I know it's a big ask, but we have the means to help." I took a deep breath, trying to process what she was saying. I wasn't opposed to helping her family, but this was something entirely different. We had our own financial goals and responsibilities. I'd worked hard to make sure we were comfortable, but this felt like a huge stretch. "We can't just throw money around like that," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's one thing to give them a little help, but paying off their entire mortgage, that's a huge commitment." She looked at me with a mix of confusion and frustration. "You don't understand. They've done so much for us. It's the least we can do. You're being selfish." Those words stung. I felt like I was being painted as the villain in my own home. Her family had always been a part of our lives, but I never expected to be pushed into this kind of financial obligation. I wanted to help, but this was more than I was willing to take on. "I'm not being selfish," I said firmly. "I just don't think it's reasonable. We can't put our own financial future at risk for this." Her eyes narrowed, and that's when I knew she wasn't going to back down icily. "Well, if you don't want to help, maybe we shouldn't have moved here in the first place." The silence between us was thick with tension. I could feel the emotional weight of her words hanging over me. It was clear that she wasn't asking anymore. She was telling me this was what needed to happen. I stood my ground, but the situation was far from over. In the days that followed, things started to change. My wife became more distant, more resentful, and the atmosphere in our home grew colder. I felt like we were walking on eggshells. Every conversation felt strained, as if we were both afraid to say the wrong thing. But I couldn't ignore the tension that was slowly suffocating our relationship. She would bring up her parents' situation, again and again, dropping hints about how much easier life would be for everyone if we just helped. It wasn't just about the mortgage anymore. It was like I was being guilted into supporting her entire family, financially and emotionally. I tried to push back gently, but the more I resisted, the more frustrated she became. "You don't care about my family," she accused, her voice sharp. "You're making this all about money." It wasn't about the money. It was about boundaries, about respect. I couldn't just throw my financial security away because she wanted to fix everyone's problems. We had talked about starting a family of our own, buying a house together, and making plans for our future, but all of that was now in jeopardy. Then, one day, things escalated in a way I never expected. I came home from work to find my wife in a heated conversation with her parents. I could hear her voice from the front door, almost pleading. I opened the door quietly and stepped inside, trying not to interrupt. "You don't understand," she said, her voice shaky. "I've been trying to make him see that we need to help, but he's not listening. He doesn't care about you guys." Felt like a knife had been twisted in my chest. Stood there, frozen, as I realized what was happening. She wasn't just asking me to help her family. She was already aligning with them, making it seem like I was the enemy for not doing what they wanted. I walked into the living room, and the conversation immediately stopped. Her parents gave me a cold, disapproving look, while my wife's expression was one of frustration, mixed with a touch of desperation. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She quickly turned to me, her face flushed with anger. "I'm tired of you standing in the way. You're making me choose between you and my family, and I can't keep doing this." I was stunned. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about control. My wife was no longer asking me for help. She was demanding that I comply with her and her family's expectations or face the consequences. Her parents' eyes seemed to gleam with approval, as if they were waiting for me to finally cave in. But in that moment, something inside me snapped. This was no longer a partnership. It was a power struggle. "I'm not going to let you or anyone else manipulate me into doing something I'm not comfortable with," I said firmly, looking at my wife and her parents. Her mother gave me a disapproving look, and her father let out a long sigh, as if he'd been expecting this response. "I can't keep living like this," I said, the weight of the situation hitting me all at once. "I won't sacrifice my peace of mind just to please everyone else." My wife's eyes welled with tears, but I could see the anger in them too. "Then maybe we're done," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe I don't want to be with someone who won't support my family." Those words stung more than anything else she'd said. It wasn't just a marriage anymore. It felt like she was choosing sides. I was losing. The days after that conversation were some of the most difficult of my life. The tension between my wife and me reached a breaking point. We barely spoke, and when we did, it was always in anger or frustration. Her words echoed in my mind. "Maybe I don't want to be with someone who won't support my family." It felt like a slap to the face, but I knew deep down that something had already broken. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about respect, boundaries, and the choices we had to make for our future. I couldn't keep living in a marriage where my opinions and desires were dismissed in favor of her family's needs. That's not what partnership was supposed to be. I remember one night after I had come home from work, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, papers spread out in front of her. The way she looked at me so determined made my stomach churn. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice cold, "about how this whole situation is affecting us. I think you need to make a decision." I felt a knot in my throat. "What decision?" "Either you agree to help my parents with their mortgage, or—" She trailed off, but I could hear the weight of her words hanging in the air. I looked at her, searching for any sign that this was just a passing phase, but there was none. Her eyes were hard, almost like she was daring me to choose. My mind raced, trying to comprehend what she was asking. She was giving me an ultimatum. "This isn't about just paying off a mortgage anymore," I said, trying to remain calm. "This is about you choosing your family over our marriage, and I can't keep living like that." She stared at me, her hands clenched into fists on the table. "I'm not asking for much. You don't even care enough to do this one thing. I need you to choose, because I'm not going to keep being with someone who doesn't put my family first." That was it. In that moment, I realized that I couldn't win. It wasn't just about the house or the money. It was about a fundamental difference in how we saw the world. I loved her, but I couldn't sacrifice my happiness, my peace of mind, or my future just to appease her and her family. "I'm sorry," I said, the words feeling heavier than I'd ever imagined, "but I can't do this anymore. I won't choose between you and my own values." Her face twisted with anger, and I saw the realization hit her she was losing control of the situation. She stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "So that's it? You're just going to give up on us and everything we built together?" I didn't know how to answer. What had we really built? A house? A life? Or was it just a series of compromises where my wants and needs didn't matter? She walked out of the room, slamming the door behind her, stood there, alone, my heart pounding in my chest. This was happening. The marriage I had worked so hard to build, the future I thought we were creating together, was crumbling right before my eyes. That night, I slept on the couch, unable to face her. I knew what needed to happen. The next day, I called a lawyer. The decision was made, but it didn't make it any easier. In fact, every step felt like a punch to the gut. I never thought I'd be here, staring at divorce papers in my hands, but I knew I couldn't continue living in this emotional battlefield. The next morning, my wife and I had a conversation that felt more like a formality than a real exchange of feelings. She was already on edge, her eyes red from crying, but there was an anger behind them that I hadn't seen before. She was determined to make me feel guilty, to make me question my decision. "I can't believe you're doing this," she said, her voice trembling with both rage and hurt. "You're going to throw away everything for what? Your pride? Your stubbornness?" "I'm not throwing it away," I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. "But this isn't what I signed up for. Can't keep ignoring the fact that we're not on the same page anymore. This isn't about money, it's about control. You want me to keep sacrificing my boundaries for your family, and I can't do that?" She shook her head, as though she couldn't fathom what I was saying. "You're selfish. I've been trying to give you everything. A home, a family, a life together, but you can't even make this small sacrifice." "I've been making sacrifices for years," I said, my voice finally cracking. "But it's never enough, is it? You and your family always want more, and I'm tired. I can't give any more." She didn't respond, just stood there, staring at me with a mix of disbelief and anger. But then, the realization hit her.
Oh.
I wasn't going to back down. I wasn't going to apologize or beg her to stay. I was done. I filed for divorce that afternoon, and everything after that felt like a blur. It wasn't a decision I came to lightly, but deep down, I knew it was the only way out. Her family had become a wedge between us, and we were no longer the partners we once were. We were strangers who happened to be living in the same house. When the divorce was finalized a few months later, it felt surreal. I had lost the woman I once loved, but I had gained something much more important: my freedom. After the divorce was finalized, I moved out of the house. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, but it also left me with an empty, hollow feeling. I had lost so much more than just a marriage. I had lost the version of myself that I thought I was, the person who had sacrificed so much to make her happy, to make her family happy. I focused on my work, spent time with friends, and reconnected with the parts of myself that had been neglected for so long. I found peace in the solitude, and though I missed the idea of what could have been, I knew I had made the right choice. One day my ex-wife called. I didn't want to answer, but I did anyway. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice softer than I expected. "I need to explain some things." I didn't know what to expect, but part of me felt like it was over. The emotional tug-of-war, the constant battles over control and money, it was all behind me now. We met at a coffee shop. She looked different, tired, worn down, like she hadn't been sleeping well. She had always been so put together, but now I saw the cracks in her facade. She looked at me as if searching for some sign that I still cared, but I didn't feel the way I once did. "I know I messed up," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "I thought if I could make you see things my way, everything would be fine, but I was wrong. I'm sorry for what I put you through." I sat there, silent. Part of me wanted to reach out, to comfort her, to tell her it was okay, but it wasn't okay. And I knew that if I let myself go down that road, I would only be walking right back into the same traps that had led us here. "I'm glad you're sorry," I said, my voice steady, "but I'm done. I can't go back. I've learned that sometimes, even when you love someone, it's not enough. It's not enough if they don't respect you or your boundaries. I've been through too much to go back to the same mistakes. Her face fell. She didn't say anything else. We sat there for a few more minutes, the weight of the years of tension between us hanging in the air. Finally, I stood up. "I hope you find peace," I said, turning to leave, "but it won't be with me." And with that, I walked away. That was the last time I saw her. I kept the house, just as I had planned. It was mine, no one could take it from me. But more importantly, I had taken back control of my life. In the end, the house was more than just a property. It was a symbol of my independence, of the boundaries I had fought so hard to set. And though I had lost a lot, I had gained something far more valuable. The ability to live on my own terms,